Welcome to DAO Deep Dives, where we interview DAO founders, core DAO contributors, and everyone else who works on the periphery of decentralized autonomous organizations.
All right, welcome guys. I am extremely excited about today's recording with two of the OGs in the DAO space for sure. I think many of our listeners will know just by, if you're watching this on YouTube, by looking at the faces, but we are honored to host once again Grendel here on this episode. He has joined us for episode, I think, 12 maybe, with Bankless DAO. And then joining him today is Justice. Hey guys, how's it going?
And I'm very honored to be here.
Excellent. And of course, Solve, how are you? Good to see you as always.
Yep, let's just do some quick introductions. We've heard from Grendel before, but Grendel, how about reintroduce yourself and then we'll move on to Justice.
Yeah, of course. I work for Polygon right now, taking care of the DAO space with Justice. We take care of what we call DAO BD, that it means supporting the growth of the DAO ecosystem on top of Polygon. But of course, we try to do our best for the overall decentralized space. Before Polygon, I was part of Bankless DAO and Forefront mostly, and it was an experience, changed a lot of myself. I understood what I wanted to do, where I wanted to focus more, and that's why I joined Polygon to take care of all those stuff. Before I started as a dev, then I had a marketing company, an IT company, but I'm very happy to tell you that I had the chance to close all the Web2 companies that I had and focus only on Web3. Justice?
Yeah, very similar background as Marco. I've been with Polygon officially since February, so not a real long time. Before that was helping with the grants evaluation process and what was the Polygon DAO, now it's Polygon Village, right? And before that, knew Marco from Bankless and spent the past 2 years being obsessed with DAOs because, and this is the evolution, which for maybe a year or so, I was like, what's the connection here? I thought it was a full pivot on my career, and then the light bulb went off where started as a dev, just like Marco, and then moved into the agile scene, scaled agile framework, Scrum at scale. And this is all like, how do you organize teams in an IT setting to deliver like productive elements? Because one team could get complex, but if you have 8 teams, you have to have a system for how that works. And so I went from programming computers to programming teams and people to actual programmable organizations, which is the DAO space. And that's the thread. And we're still trying to advance that so that we get is equal where sophisticated organizations are now, and then leapfrog them and go even further.
Amazing. Grendel answered that question last time already. We always ask our guests this question. So I'm just going to throw it at you, Justice. Since you just said you were obsessed with DAOs over the last 2 years, I would love to hear your interpretation of what a DAO is. And it doesn't have to be literal. You can take that kind of in your own words.
Yeah, I'm pretty somewhat liberal with this. And I think rather than having a witch hunt on what's a real and a fake DAO, just making careful distinctions. And I'll say this, I'll answer it with a narrative. And this is what I'm super geeked on right now. And I don't think this story has been told as strongly as it needs to be told because we've been all caught up in flame wars. And that is Bitcoin separated state and money, decentralized money. Powerful concept, huge. The world hasn't even begun to reckon with it yet, just beginning. Ethereum separated contracts from state. So now instead of going to the court and saying, hey, my buddy, he signed this thing and he's not doing his part, it's listen, these are self-executing agreements where you lose a stake and you don't have to call the insurance company or whatever. It either happens or it doesn't. So this is enormous. This is like a third law of nature. DAOs separate organizations from state. And this is the monumental piece, okay? Because now, the way it works right now is if all 4 of us want to have a collective ownership over some asset, the only way to do that is to go to the state, sign a piece of paper that says, hey, we agree, we have control and upside of this asset. And then if something happens in the future, we can go back to the court and say, hey, you owe me 25% of that. We're doing that digitally now, a claim on future value and a governance over control, shared control over that. And so I would say the DAO in the broadest sense fits into that. And to make it a little more concrete, I think 2 people on a multi-sig is effectively a DAO. Is it decentralized? Well, it's not one person. It's 2 people, right, who have control and a claim on that in some sense. And then you can get like more kind of complex from there. But that's why I like the distinction with the tokenized community, because the tokenized community is there is an aspect of that community that's on chain. There's a decentralized money and usually a multi-sig and some roles and stuff, and some incentive built in where you wouldn't want to rug your own community, because in order to rug it, you'd have to have a bunch of the currency. And if you have the currency, you'd be rugging yourself. And so I take a real broad view on this. And so if that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Let's go back to Grendel. I'm curious, with you having spent so much time, and actually I would like to both of you to answer this one, but Grendel, if you want to take it first. Just curious on what your favorite DAOs are currently, like what's going on which you're really excited about.
I would say that my favorite DAO is always the next one, beside Bankless DAO. Bankless DAO is something different. We discussed about it. It's not just because I spoke about Bankless DAO here. I think that Bankless DAO is a DAO that can be measured not for its token, not for many on-chain measurement that we use for everything else. The amount of impact the Bankless DAO is doing in the space, in my opinion, is amazing. Something similar is actually coming from Forefront too, on the teaching side, on explaining better the ecosystem. And as Justice was talking about, the tokenized community, that is something that Jihad works a lot and talks a lot about. But the next one is my favorite one, meaning that I know that the evolution in the space will give us a lot of surprises, because there are so many great thinkers and great builders that at the end, even if I spend so much time with Justice to think what could be the next phase, we are just 2 people. And of course, we connect with so many other builders, but we always are so lucky to be surprised for the next one.
Awesome. Justice, what's your favorite right now?
I would say I have to piggyback on what Marco said. Like Bankless DAO will never lose. Like I'm wearing my DAO Punk shirt just for the occasion. This is the second time wearing it, only special occasions, and it's a special place. And then to see kind of so many people from Bankless DAO get plugged into so many cool places, like Snapshot, Uniswap, Lido, like everybody.
Polygon.
Yeah, Polygon.
Aragon.
Everybody's plugged in real cool places, which is really neat, and to have gone through that journey together. But I would say, again, maybe a complex answer is I would say you could say 2 categories of my favorite. The one is the more rigorously structured, like token engineering, like the biggest ones, the DeFi and the chains, right? Where they have to model this properly or else everybody drowns and it's a catastrophe. And there, we don't typically look at them as DAOs. They're more like, hey, the Uniswap grants program. But if there's token value accrual and that value is being distributed in a way that advances the network, if under governance, effectively, it's a DAO, right? So those are really interesting because they have something fundamental solved there. And so it's, hey, let's look at what they're doing, how they're doing it. But then the other side is the far more experimental ones, which tend to look more like the tokenized communities, because they're trying to do stuff that's like totally unexplored. It's just weird stuff, right? What could we do that hasn't been done? And then some strange stuff in the middle. Nouns DAO, which is hard to put a box around it. It's like a one-sided market protocol. And so I'm not a maxi on all 3 of those. I'm trying to pull a little bit from each basket to say, what can we learn from them?
But I would like to add that beside DAOs, the excitement that is coming from DAOs most of the time is coming also for their partners, projects that are helping them to grow. And I know that one of the 2 that I'm going to mention is something that you know because you hosted Daniel a few days ago. But actually, I think that JokeRace, that was JokeDAO, and ThriveCoin are really 2 of the greatest DAO projects that I can see around. Because what they are doing is actually giving the chance to many community to become DAO or to engage with the people that they have. The DAO, just with the builders, most of the time will end their ideas. They will stay inside the maximum amount of, thinking or effort that the original team can do. And then you have the new people that are coming, but most of the time they have to learn. But then you have the professional people that are building great tools in order to make the DAO strong. I think that the next DAO that we will see that will be amazing, it is not just about the ideas, it's not just about the framework, but also the partners that they will have.
Yeah, I'm glad you talk about the tooling and what's going on in the background, right? Obviously, the community is a big part of DAOs, but there are many layers, obviously, in our industry. And shifting to Polygon, which is actually, I'll let you answer that real briefly. And maybe Justice, you can take the high level, because then I want to go a little bit deeper here in just a second into Polygon 2.0. I assume most of our listeners are familiar with Polygon, but for those of them who might not, give us a high-level description on what's Polygon all about.
This is my interpretation and perspective on this, and this may not be entirely accurate, right? Polygon did some BD genius because they could more quickly come to market with a scaling solution that was brand aligned with Ethereum via a sidechain. Okay. And that was there before anybody else to have adoption. And now you're sending resources around and doing governance for pennies, not $10, $15, $20, right? And then these other kind of rigorous roll-ups came out, but now they have to try to get the adoption. We already have the adoption and have now deployed a technical solution called zk-EVM, which we had the resource, Polygon had the resources to do it because of all the adoption on the Polygon POS, the scaling solution, the sidechain. And this is, so they bought time with the sidechain, then came out with the most technical solution on a ZK rollup, not optimistic, and is now going to upgrade POS to a Validium. And so it's a scaling solution. The Polygon 2.0 is basically the roadmap unroll of how all this works. And ultimately what it is like Oprah Winfrey, everybody gets a chain, right? Okay. With shared liquidity, and you cannot have shared liquidity without ZK. Because you can't just like, hey, give it enough time and anyone can challenge whether you have actually put a fraudulent claim on having some value. You can actually prove it with cryptography. And so this is the idea, and this is the arms race to be the platform for the value layer of the future internet.
Yes. So the value layer of the future internet. Very powerful statement. Grendel, what does that mean? Give us a little bit more on what Polygon thinks will happen here very soon. Actually, it's in progress, right? 2.0 is very actively rolling out.
Yeah. This progress is motivated by many different ideas and many different motivations. But most of all, it's the progressive decentralization ideal that is going to be finally completed. The fact is that with a sidechain that had part of the security on Ethereum was not like being a layer 2. And the fact is that Polygon thought a lot about how to scale, where to scale. It was, first of all, the decision was on the technology, so on ZK. But then the decision on the technology side was also to decide what kind of, higher scaling could have been done. And the decision was what Justice was talking about. So going to have many layer 2s and not one layer 2 that was secured everything on layer 1 and then layer 3 that were securing everything on layer 2. This way, Polygon as a chain or two chains, if you want to see the POS becoming a ZK-EVM Validium and the ZK-EVM chain, will be just two of the many chains that will be on the Polygon stack. And it means that with the unified liquidity that Justice was talking about, you don't have to restart everything from scratch every time that you start a chain. You have the access, immediate access, very fast, faster than going to Ethereum, to use every kind of tooling or also to access liquidity everywhere. It means extensive composability everywhere. You are in your, DAO Deep Dives chain, and you can access directly to the liquidity that is on ZKVM or POS, but you can use also, stack that is deployed on one of the chains. without doing every time everything from the start. Also, value chain means that what Polygon did a lot during the time, trying to, well, move from the idea that actually a chain is just a place where you do random transaction. The wheel is actually to bridge the old world, if we want to call it like this, the Web 2 to something new. And so to move the value that was created and is created still in Web 2 to the new internet. In order to do it, you need also businesses, you need corporations. So you need new form of business corporation, the decentralized one, that will come over time because there are new frameworks that should think about. But you need to give them the chance to build on top of a layer that actually can give, well, infinite scalability and total unified liquidity and unified composability.
This sounds like it eliminates the need for bridges. And so, do you see us going that way? And then, just to add to that a little bit, you're saying that Polygon 2.0 involves standing up individual shards per product or company or DAO or whatever. So, those are obviously programmable to the specifics of that individual protocol and product, and then being able to access any liquidity anywhere. Yeah, why bridge?
First of all, you have to consider also that each one of the chain will also have the chance to decide its own governance. And it's not something that, well, happens anytime. And each one of the chain could decide to be a validium in order to have lower costs and so on. But why bridging? Actually, bridging is what is happening when you do those instant transactions, because at the end you need a bridge. But it's very different if the bridge, as Justice was saying, is secured by ZK and can trust ZK proofs. If you can trust everything that that a proof chain, because it's protected by ZK, is doing, well, it's far faster than having to reprove every time all the new transactions and so on. So we can say that the bridging exists because it is what is called the bridge X to Y, because at the end you can move to one layer to another instantly, quite instantly. But the big transformation from the past, from what we are experiencing now, is that the impression, your experience will be that you are not bridging. The experience will be to be in one unified chain. This is what is going to happen. The technology will include the bridge, of course, but the experience will be like you are not bridging.
Yeah, amazing. And then just to add on to that a little bit or to ask, does this involve, and do you see the involvement of extending beyond decentralized liquidity into more centralized versions? Will these centralized exchanges be able to open up access perhaps to that liquidity as well? Do you see those two things working together or staying on different sides of the wall, if you will?
Oh man, I couldn't say. It's getting deep. Even just moving into the mental model of having absolute fluidity across like multiple chains is still a foreign concept to think on what that looks like and feels. So it feels pretty new to determine what that looks like. I will say another aspect of this that changes things is the ability to generate fees via the sequencers. And so the opportunity, because the issue of monetizing a protocol was always like, if you take a fee at the contract level, someone will fork your contract and remove the fee, and all liquidity will go there. And the idea is like sequencer fees gets redirected to public goods under governance. And so when you add that aspect and then you think about bringing this to Web 2 companies, here's the deal. They already are thinking in terms of API first design. IT companies have already been thinking about API first thinking for over a decade, 2 decades, right? And so to say, hey, this is the equivalent of that, but you're transmitting not information, but assets, digital scarcity of something you can own. This connects with what they already know and introduces something like a whole new thing, digital economy.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. All right, I'm going to steer it back to Polygon and specifically an approach you guys are taking there. So, as a DAO podcast, we love governance approaches and talking about this. And you guys took one with Polygon 2.0, which is like a 3-pillar approach that involves the community. So, can you tell us just a bit about the 3 pillars and how one scales a massive L2 into a community driven value layer of the internet?
Yeah, of course. We can talk about the three pillars. Every one of them is quite deep, but of course, we will try to do our best to cover all of them. I would like to start from the third one. From the third one, that is the less detailed right now, and one of the more engaging from an ecosystem standpoint, because at the end is how Polygon think the decentralization and the support and the growth of the ecosystem should come. I'm talking about the community treasury, and is a very important step for any kind of ecosystem, because it says that the new token, because it's based on the new token, the poll token, will become kind of inflationary, meaning that every single year there will be a new emission of tokens. And 1% of this emission will be actually given to the community in order to grow to help the growth of the chain with a decentralized or progressively decentralized committee that will be able to govern how the tokens will be spent. It means that right now, when we are looking at the current ecosystem, every kind of week, there is a new layer 2, a new layer 1, there is a new chain. All the new chain are leveraging their new future token, even if they don't announce it, to attract builders. So everyone knows that if you do some transaction here or there is a chance that will come and grow. But later on, you know that the token will be used also to fund grant programs. And those grant programs will come in order to give the chance to builders to deploy on the chain, building the infrastructures that are needed in order for the chain to attract new people, to attract new projects, and to grow DeFi, grow DAO activities and Polygon doesn't need it, if you think about it, because actually Polygon has already a big ecosystem and a big set of infrastructure. The difference is that Polygon is committing 1% of its emission every year for 10 years in order to build new infrastructure, to build new projects that will actually innovate the space. You don't need to redeploy everything that is already on Polygon. And so that's why I think it's very powerful and it's very important. So you have also the protocol governance. The protocol, it is the first one, and it is something that I was mentioning before. So on the protocol governance, of course, we start from something that was already done, that is implementing the PIP system. The PIP system, the community can actually send proposals of improvement in order to say that there is something that should evolve over something else. And then there are votes that will actually give the chance to the developers, could be from Polygon, but also outside Polygon, to work on what is missing or what should be amended. One of the steps of the progressive decentralization that I was talking about. And of course, it's very important. And of course, it is inspired by Ethereum. But if we have to be inspired by someone, we are building on Ethereum. We share the same ethos. We are really Ethereum maxis most of the time, and we believe that the EVM space is their good one. And so the evolution, it should be in this direction. The second one, that is actually the most difficult one, and it must be crafted in a really great way. And I'm fully trust the Polygon team to do it from the governance side to the develop tech side. Is the chance for the system, the smart contract governance, is actually to upgrade the protocol components that are implemented as smart contracts. This is something that, of course, is not happening right now, will come in the future. I think that the overall vision of the three pillars is something that many other chains didn't do. Some of them already announced some governance structure that are more, kind of innovative what they're doing. But in my opinion, the three pillars that were presented by Polygon, but of course I work for Polygon, so I'm not fully objective. I think that they are a great innovation for the space.
I like to frame it as there's the core contract upgrades. The first pillar, second pillar is who has the keys, who has the authority to make those kind of changes. And then the three is like, where does the value get directed and used that's generated by that whole system? And as a general statement, that's what the concerns are. And ultimately the aim is to be more transparent and rigorous and inclusive, and how each of these areas, the decisions are made and how it works.
So I know Grendel touched on it, but Justice, what's the POL token? And definitively, how are we saying this token out loud? POL, POL.
What I heard some people call it, Paul, that ain't gonna fly. We cannot. The Paul token, it sounds like your neighbor created a token and is trying to push this now. His personal token, right?
If you want, I can start from a bit of history. Matic evolved on Polygon when other founders joined, for example, Mikhailo, and then there was this decision to change the name. But since then, there was this will, of course, to update the name of the token. But just to update the name of the token without adding anything new, it didn't sound something very intelligent. And the fact is that, of course, smart contracts, token smart contract cannot be updated. You cannot edit the token. And so you had to do something on a token design. If you want to do something good, it will take at least 2 years, as it happened. But the point is that everything that is coming from the POL token is very different from what is before, and it is mostly on the side, on the what I love to call it, that is an hyper-productive token. The hyper-productive aspect is something that concerns what I was talking about, the governance of the chain. You have a token right now that will be a governance token, because with the tokens you will be able actually to govern the protocol. But the fact is that you are not just going to govern a protocol. There is also a staking mechanism to the token. The staking mechanism at the end won't be limited to the two ZK VM chain, the one with Validium and the one not. It will be also expanded to all the new app chains that will be part of the Polygon stack. It means that when you're going to stack, it's not something that is coming tomorrow, it is under development. You will be able also to decide where to stack your tokens and becoming a validator of one or more chains. And of course, you have to think that those app chains, there will be many, there will be probably different incentives based on what each chain will do. But at the end, there is a big difference when you can become a layer 2. First of all, the token that is used to do everything to pay for gas, it's Ethereum. It's not the Matic token anymore. Right now, the Matic token is the gas for the Polygon chain, the POS chain. But in the future, it won't be. So the utility of the token had to be redesigned, rethought. But in order not to have just something that was related to staking as it is right now to secure the chain, now the token will be used to secure many chains, all the chains that you want, becoming a validator for more than one chain if you want. This is a new design, a novel design that I think is very interesting, because at the end, you are going to say that the Matic token, that beside the extra emission that will be done for the community token, it's not inflationary, that can be used in multiple chain, in practically infinite chains, the number of chains that will be, in order to become a validator and to stake on many different chains. This is different from what was happening anywhere in the blockchain world. I think it's very system.
That was amazing. Fantastic. When you go from a single chain to the whole multiverse of chains, you have to have a token with the utility to bear the brunt of all that mechanics. And with anything, any type of economic design, there's a faucet and a sink. And that has to be designed out across these multiple chains. What's the sink? It's the staking to secure the multiple chains. And then what's the faucet back in? It's the part of it would be the 1% coming back in and pay towards validators and stuff. And so that whole much larger system couldn't all be built on current Matic. Yeah.
But we cannot say when it will happen. There will be announcement from Polygon.
At least a week or two.
Yeah, maybe a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was posed as a question on the governance of Polygon. So the community was asked if this is the direction that everyone wants to follow. Right now, the majority of people is actually saying that this is what they want to see, and so I think it's very probable that this is the direction that will come. But there is no already an exact date when everything will be.
Are ZK proofs going to be fundamentally changing DAOs and the way it operates? What are the ecosystem changes within DAOs that are possible now or will be happening due to ZK proofs?
Let me weigh on this one real quick. Sometimes I think we've been bending ourselves into pretzels because we assume that the way things have worked will work that way forever, when in fact not. And for instance, we've said things like, oh, DAOs are completely transparent on every aspect. But then it's hard to think, where's the private business logic come in? And so where's the kind of private computation or even privacy as an individual or organizational privacy? It should be voluntary. Like I have the ability now as an individual to put stuff online and other stuff I don't want to put online. But then you lose the programmability of stuff that's not online, right? And so ZK, and this is the reason why Vitalik calls it, I think he called it, maybe it was at the last DevCon, the most significant in technological impact since blockchains themselves, is the ability to have programmatic information that is also private. And so right now, mostly what it seems to be being used as with ZK is efficiency gains. But this will expand into the ability to have programmable privacy, private business logic, where stuff is on chain but not accessible or visible by everyone. Homomorphic encryption, where you can do computation on encrypted data with encrypted outputs without even actually knowing it. So this changes everything. This goes all the way to large language models and collective ownership of that. And so ZK is that big.
On the ZK side, of course, I agree with Justice in so many levels. But there is something that, in my opinion, is very important for DAOs. DAOs are human organization. And at the end, ZK proof, especially linked to identity, part of what Justice was saying, for me, is the most fundamental thing. If we can start interacting between people, just proving claims, reputational claims that are on-chain and provable, while being able not to disclose a lot of ourselves. And this is part of the conversation that we had during the Bankless episode, being able to not know the origin, the ethnicity, the religion, and everything, the sex, the age of all the people that we are interacting. But we can just prove their additional claims and so on about what they actually did positive in the space. I think it would be a great time for many DAOs, the social DAOs, but also the DAOs that will be more related to business. Because at the end, you will have, as an individual, a lot more to be engaged and to engage with others than being always limited to the fact that someone will always, not always, but it happens to relate to the fact that you are from this country, of this kind of ethnicity, and so on.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that private business logic a little bit. Grendel, I think you were just recently in touch with a fellow DAO member from Constellation DAO, Jim, and he asked you a question which I thought I want to bring up here again, and that is, what do you think it will take for investment DAOs and incubator DAOs to become more successful? And I feel like this is very related to that private business logic, right? Because in startup investments it's hard to get all of that out in public unless it's already like something on chain. So riff on that a little bit.
Well, I will leave the part about the business logic to Justice, because you've heard him. He's far better than me on explaining it. So I prefer him to cover it. But I will tell you that, first of all, you need new products. You need products that can be really useful for investment. You need something that can be really well used in a better way to what we see now. We are working a lot. Maybe it doesn't seem the same thing, but we are working a lot right now on treasury management best practices for DAOs, for digital organization, for decentralized organization, because we think that before even starting investing, you should be aware of what you're doing. So my first response would be, you have to be very cautious of which the products are if you're starting an investment DAO, but also you should be cautious on the people that are managing it. We are in crypto, yeah, we are in Web3. We are always very open to have people working, covering roles because they seem very good at it. Even if maybe they don't have all the skills to do it, I would never be able to do it because I didn't do economics or finance in university. While if you go to the professional, with the professional, you will usually do better than the ones that are managing treasury or managing investment without having a big background on it. But on the more structured and operational side, I will leave it to Justice.
Could you repeat the question again? What do we need to unlock kind of investment DAOs again?
Yeah. What will it take to make investment DAOs and incubators, or just let's rephrase it maybe and ask, how do we truly disrupt the VC model as it exists today?
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because here's my hot take on this thing. Many of the people espousing their love for decentralization and DAOs are actually 100% dependent upon the traditional VC investing. And so they want to purchase claims in something that on the front side looks like it's a community owned initiative, and on the back side has already been claimed on the paperwork on a business level. And probably one of the barriers that we're experiencing DAOs is that everyone's jumping too quick to like DAOs as nation states and DAOs as like post capitalism, like Starship Enterprise stuff. When in fact, if we could just try to even mirror existing like corporate governance or like separation of stakeholders or multi-class token claims, this would put us way further ahead. Think about it like a single token weighted voting as it exists right now. As an investor, how do you participate? You buy the token in the open market, but then as a contributor, you get paid in the token, and then you dump it to live. And so you've mashed all together both these personas. One needs to pay the bills, and the other is looking at it as an investor. And so coming back to a separation of those things is good. I'm a big fan of the Moloch DAO governance and having a separation between a governance token and then a claim on the treasury. And so creating more sophisticated mechanisms like that, I think are like very promising.
Yeah, that's interesting in so many ways. You said Moloch DAO now. What came to mind, and I probably said this before in an episode, I'm a little biased toward that, is Colony. I always like how they separate the multi-token approach in a way, at least with their reputation model, which runs in unison with your earnings, so to speak.
You touch one of the favorite points for Justice, because he keeps saying the same thing, and I agree with him all the time.
Just the fact that DAOs haven't 100% imploded, we should actually be kind of shocked, because most of them have had no reputation system. How long would eBay exist without a reputation? Less than 24 hours. Okay. The fact that these communities continue to operate without reputation and out of goodwill, that someone's just not going to go in and completely nuke the Notion page and the Discord server and stuff. We've just gotten lucky. But if we continue to rest on our laurels, I'm not sure how big of laurels they are, right? Of what we've done from 2 years ago plus, this luck is going to run out. If we want to unlock new stuff, it has to be new, composable, on-chain, multifaceted, multi-stakeholder systems. And this requires some more complex, like adult thinking, rather than just launch a token and we'll run this thing on vibes. That's all cool, but I want to go to the future. Yeah.
The only thing that I would add is actually that when you launch any kind of organization, and even if it is an investment club and so on, you have first of all to think about all the stakeholders of the organization that you're launching. So if the investment parties and also the project that you're going to invest in, you consider them stakeholders, then it really changed the way you can build the investment DAO. You have to decide if you are going to behave in a sort of, let's call it predatory way. You find the best people to fund in order to extract value, or you can actually act more as an incubator first and then a VC, being able to create an ecosystem. On my side, I prefer the second one. I think that if you are aware of the fact who are the good builders. You can identify good ideas and so on. It's not the fact that you have to bet everything on just one use case. You can create an ecosystem of different use cases that are able to interact one to each other. It's the real plus of Web3, in my opinion. What we're talking about having many chains is the composability. The more composable we can actually build, the best it will be. And so even if I am an investor, even if I am a VC, I should be careful enough to build a very welcoming ecosystem for a project that I want to follow and I want to grow and I want to invest in. Because at the end, leveraging the success of one could lend also to the success of others. And this is a different way on how investment does most of the time. Most of the time, you go for an opportunity, you deploy capital. The only thing that matters and how you will divide all the stakes between the participants. Nothing really goes back to the ecosystem, besides the fact that you randomly, sorry should I say it, but sometimes it's like this, you will pick one winner on many others. There is a difference between building an ecosystem, investing and making money out of it because it's a job, than just making money out of it without considering actually the ecosystem where you're living.
Man, I just had an epiphany from something you guys are saying, and specifically Justice, when you mentioned eBay and the reputation system. Like, I found this entire space by finding Bitcoin in 2011, and I found Bitcoin because of the Silk Road. And I never would have found the Silk Road without a reputation system built into the Silk Road, because I never would have used it, right?
How could you?
So like I owe this reputation system concept to absolutely everything I do today professionally. And
Yep.
I think Web3 does in general. That's absolutely amazing. I didn't even click on that before.
We've gotten real lucky, and it's great, right? But if we can actually shore up the reputation piece, the separation of stakeholders, what will unfold will make everything that has come up to this point seem like nothing. The amount of liquidity out there where I can, as like right now, given this old outdated system, the system that's supposedly supposed to protect me, I can't, people come to me and say, hey, do you want to invest? I said, I would love to invest, but there's no way for me to do it in a crypto native way. If I could say, hey, here's $20, if every single time I purchased a right NFT on Mirror, it was also a claim on the future value of that system, of that thing they were building, I would have thousands and thousands of dollars deployed upon all these awesome projects. Like it's an absolute game changer.
And it gives us the chance to talk about something that we care a lot. Because actually what Justice is talking about is a new form of launcher for decentralized projects. It's a way to give them the chance to launch, to be funded, and to get something in return. This is a new frontier in some way because there are many launchers around, but there are not as many as we need. We need launchers for new use cases, new business models also for the people that want to invest. And what at the end the Justice is talking about, there is something that is not that exists in Web 2. If you go and check, it doesn't exist in Web 3 with all the pros that Web3 could unlock.
The crazy part is with all the DAO tooling that has come out, that's out now, many of it came out in the past couple months, like this year, stuff that's been out years prior, but especially like now, combined with scaling solutions where you're paying pennies for a transaction, not $20 to signal your thought. It's like literally on chain. Suddenly you can put all this on chain with all this tooling. The biggest lack right now, it's a narrative that business people, that normal people can understand. You can say, listen, it almost needs to have a skeuomorphic element to it of, hey, you have a board of directors. This is a digital board of directors. Hey, you have roles. These are digital roles. You have budgets, and these are the tools that allow you to do this in a way that is fast as light speed, that is like a digital quantum leap on what we've done before, on even claims on a treasury, distribution of value from a system. We may have overshot our explanations to say, hey, it's a new paradigm, it's totally different. We need to step back and explain it in a way that a business person and a founder can understand. And that's what makes me so excited about being with Polygon, because Polygon has the brand recognition and the relationships to be this the BD, the business, implementation, actual customers, users. Like, it's a very practical. And then we get to explain the entire DAO upside and mechanics to that audience.
If Reddit would turn all their communities with NFTs right now into DAOs, Reddit would have done more for DAOs than everyone in the space together. Because everyone in the world would immediately understand what a DAO is, because you have a community with an NFT that is able to give you the governance of the channel. It's so simple.
Think about too, like, how big was Constitution DAO? Constitution DAO was enormous. Would it have even hit the headlines if it was just like, hey, everyone donate money into a multi-sig and we're going to do it? No, the trust mechanism was uniquely lit on fire by the juice box mechanism, that you put money in and you had a claim. And so we need to come back to that. It's not just like, hey, let's all pull money and do a thing. There has to be a unique claim on that value and unique governance. And we can do that if we are able to tell this new narrative to businesses, enterprises on this is a way to supercharge what you're doing.
Quick question on Constitution. I just want to add one thing here and get your take on it. So we were talking about earlier ZK proofs and DAOs, and then we're talking about business and private business. And then so specifically with Constitution DAO, obviously the main issue here was the public amount of the treasury itself, which is why the entire initiative fell short in the end. And for those that don't know, they sought to buy a copy of the Constitution. Another investor, a very wealthy billionaire investor, came in and just outbid them because we knew exactly how much the DAO had. Can we solve this with ZK proof technology?
Of course, if ZK is implemented and you are able to prove that the bid was done without revealing the amount of the bid, this is so. Because at the end, it was not, as you're saying, a fair game because someone had more information.
The world has changed around us too. Since then, we're dealing with now real world assets, tokenized securities, Christie's. We have NFTs as fine art now. Like, the world has changed quite a bit. And so the more of these parallel rails go on chain, this increases the fluidity of doing things like bidding on a house or bidding on this piece of physical property and stuff.
We already have some new layer 2 that are ZK chains that are completely secure, private, and so on. Personally, I don't think that this is the direction it should be done. But as Justice is saying, something on the business side, of course, and as you were saying for Constitution DAO, should become private, at least just to the people that should know about it. And not everything should be on the public. But with the reputation, with ZK claims and so on, we can prove that we are acting as we should act. Privacy and could seem to be different things that are opposite one to each other, but they are not. Actually, the transparency is to be transparent that I'm following the rules. I should not be here to tell you, I don't know. If I tell you that I'm over 18, I don't have to tell you if I'm 25, 35, or whatever. I'm just here to tell you that I'm over 18. You don't need to know more. So I'm over 18. I can buy liquor in many states. I can drive a car and so on. But that's all. This is how everything should work, in my opinion. You should reveal what is enough for your counterparty to decide if you are able or not to receive a service or to get something in return. Everything else is just too much, because this is something about yourself that you should decide when to disclose it or not.
This is quite amazing. We could keep going down this rabbit hole. I love you guys riffing on all of these topics. I want to take it into what might just be another Pandora's box for just a second. We had a guest before on the show who is working on, or at least proposed the idea of a personalized AI to empower community members to do more or in more community. And what I mean by that is basically an AI that would understand our values, our beliefs, and interact in the communities for us, summarizing proposals maybe, and maybe propose votes or even flat out vote for us. What do you see AI being a role in this entire ecosystem or in this entire industry for us? That very use case I would love to have today. right? Because certainly if you love DAOs, you're into many.
I will start from the romantic point of view. Every one of us, if we are in crypto, is a really fan of sci-fi. Okay, we've read many books about robots, about androids, and so on. And every one of us think that in the future we will interact with people that we will respect, with androids, with people that we don't even know if they are people on the Blade Runner side, where every one of us reading those books always thought I would interact as another human. I don't even care, because at the end it could be another kind of evolution. Bots at the end are the infancy of these. So while I want to respect an individual, even if it is artificial, maybe it's too soon for it, but at the end we should learn and be educated on the fact that if we don't understand what is, well, on front of us, we should not feel that we are bigger than them. I'm not here to say, as an artist Frank says, you should say thank you every time that you interact with Alexa, okay? Because Alexa doesn't know it. Siri doesn't understand the fact that you are telling them and thank you. And maybe they should improve the function in order to have a more meaningful conversation. But at the end, on one side, I think that the human touch is very important all the time in DAOs and so on. But on the other side, scaling means that you need also to use the best of the technique, best of the technology, in order also to be able to do some functions where you don't have enough people to do it. So there is a good chance, in my opinion, that we'll see a lot of them. Actually, we are surrounded in our life of things that they want to talk to us, could be our car and so on. And it's already okay for us. We don't care about it. We ask our phone or our television to change channel or to put, I don't know, a song that we want. This is on the romantic side. Maybe we should be aware of the fact that this is the evolution that will take, and maybe we should be more respectful with what technology is offering us.
We got to be careful saying thank you to AI, because if they get used to it, they can also learn to be angry as well. And so,
But this is the point. This is actually the point. If you don't want to have someone telling you thank you, then don't ask. Do it by yourself.
yeah,
That's the point.
totally.
Else, you just build things without intelligence. If you put intelligence somewhere, you should not think that you are the big man in the room.
Yeah, we need an emotional intelligence baked in as well.
Do you guys remember the original Web3? Semantic web?
Tell us.
Okay. There was a Web 3.0 as articulated as the Internet Roadmap by Tim Berners-Lee before our version of Web 3. Our version of Web 3 is Web 3 no space. Web 3.0, Web space 3.0, was the idea, and this existed long before, right? That it would be this semantic web where rather than looking for links online, you would actually query it as real information, and machines would be able to do this. This is effectively the AI, okay? Now, that there was a delay in us getting that kind of science fiction future, and where Web3 as we know it, blockchain came in and adopted that branding. The crazy part is these kind of three intersections are coming together to produce something like wild, right? So we have the original 3.0 semantic web artificial agents. Okay. We have our blockchain Web3, which is a digital physics. Okay. The whole magic of physics is that if I drop this pencil, it falls, and no matter what anyone wants, it will fall, and we can trust that. Okay. And then probably the last piece I would say here is augmented reality brings in synthetic places. So synthetic agents, synthetic physics, and synthetic places. If you remember, was it Neil Stephenson in his Snow Crash? His inspiration for this is the original metaverse. Was he was at a bus stop and a bus came by and there was an ad for this new, it was the Apple suitcase computer. And he was like, man, one of these days we're going to get inside there. And I think the future lies in this, that we're not sitting at computer screens. We're looking around and there's a digital universe over top of our existing universe that has objects and agents in it that follow a similar type of digital physics, so that I can take a digital item and set it in one place and no one can move it. And that we get that property from blockchain. And then we get these digital agents as well that can authenticate who they are and what they're doing in contrast to other individuals, for sure, through cryptography. And so these are the three things, and they're all intersecting. And if you go back and you look at the revolution that's happened on the internet every 10 years, it's all lining. And get this, if you map this out, we're at the beginning, not the end. We're at the beginning of kind of all three of these. The Apple Vision Pro launch next year, Web3 scalability literally is just arrived. And then the artificial agents literally is blowing our mind. It's just arrived. So that's the future there.
Not to mention unstable diffusion and potential breakthroughs with superconductors. Like those are two very different things, but like they actually have the capability of changing the world in a very dramatic way.
The the Bolstrom, the author of Superintelligence, he has another essay talking about with I'm a big fan of technological singularity and accelerating change and all this. And the idea is new technology is hitting so fast that now there's this black ball theory where almost by the week you can pull out a ball of this big basket, and there's some technological breakthrough that we don't even have the category for. And occasionally the statistics go high enough where eventually you pull out a black ball and it's, oh, everyone can just make a nuclear weapon at home now. Okay, how do we navigate this? So we get this super villain type probability is going up.
We need to transcend our meat suits anyway, right? And this might be, again, the bias of this science fiction kind of affinity for us, but I agree with you wholeheartedly, Grendel. The first Matrix movie, I thought I saw no problem. I think it's totally fine not to have this physical manifestation. As a matter of fact, this is hindering me more than I could even... What could you do if you didn't have those limitations, right? Yeah, maybe we're going a little bit too far out here, but
that's why I'm far more interested in AR than VR, because spend 80 hours sitting in a chair with goggles strapped to your face, no matter how much you say the body's not designed, right? If you have, though, and this is where I think the last Matrix movie totally missed it. It was all VR before. It was about jacking in. As soon as you have the internet now all around you and an overlay of digital realities, we have something that's compatible with human existence, where I can walk around and I'm interacting, not sitting at a chair looking at a screen. I'm really bullish on the days when that becomes a reality.
You heard it here first, folks. Bridge your consciousness to Polygon 3.0.
Yes, that's more than a few weeks out, but yes.
I feel confident the devs will get it done soon, but yeah.
Yeah, next year.
Let's see. I think we heard from Grendel on a previous episode about this specific topic and question. So, Justice, where are we going with DAOs from here? What does it look like 10x from where we are now?
I like to summarize this, and this is the tricky, right? Like, we tend to talk more about DAO tooling, because when you say DAOs, you bring a whole lot of baggage on what that means and what it must entail or can't have. And so really, we're super interested in DAO tooling for startups, because if you just say DAOs, then the idea is that it gets too quickly mired in community. And the thing is startups are not communities. If we start a company, I'm not sure I would call that a community. Organization is in the acronym, community is not. And so if people want to build community around kind of DAO tooling, then great. But we can't say that there's no place for organizations on chain. DAO tooling enables internet native organization. And so we need to tell the story of how that works and frame up the tooling and package it in such a way so that startups, it becomes as natural for them when they say, hey, we're writing this code, we bought a domain, when it's like we have our agreement on the claim of the value of this network and an on-chain kind of immutable expansion on how this works, from 4-person to investors of 40 to users of 400 to going public at 40,000. And like, how do we describe that? And there's a lot of interesting legal machinations in there as well, when you bring in the idea of like rage quit and something that you're not paid directly, but it is a claim on a system that's going up in value. And so that's very interesting. And then also too, what's the evolutionary path for enterprise or product oriented existing companies? And what's it look like for all the Web2 companies that have done like collectibles and this type of NFT stuff? people say the DAO diehards are like, oh, liquidate the company, become a DAO. That's not going to happen. Nothing in life works like that. It's about progressive enhancement to a particular end, and that's greater engagement among the contributors, your employees, and greater participation and engagement from your customers, or maybe even the investors. And so, like, how do we plug in DAO tooling that allows that? How do we programify? I look at it this way. There was a time when the whole stock market operated based upon chalkboards and trading pieces of paper back and forth. And when computers came along, you sure there was someone in there and say, hey, but aren't you just replicating our existing stock market in your computer? You'd be like, yeah, but that's a really good jump. We can build off of this and do cool stuff. I think we can do the same thing with DAO tooling.
The next one I want to modify slightly for today. Usually we ask, what's the craziest idea you think should be a DAO? Again, Grendel heard that one before. But currently we have something going on. Twitter is now X, right? Or becoming, we don't really know. So do you think the everything app X is potentially could be that one exception to what you just said, just as off, like you should stop the corporation and become a DAO? Do you think maybe Elon might just be crazy enough to do that with X? Because I think the everything app might be a really good use case for a DAO.
The funny part is we say, hey, just make the whole thing a DAO. You're saying move critical pieces on chain. And up until now, it's physically not even possible. Even if you look at some of these products that are like, hey, this is a network on chain. If you go and you look at like how it functions, at most you can have 50,000 users on there a day, not 400 million. Not hundreds of millions. And so this is the key piece on why it's not just a marketing messaging from Polygon to say the value layer of the internet. We're just now getting past the threshold where you can actually move things at this scale on chain. And then when you can move them on scale at that chain, then you can introduce these trustless mechanisms on claims on value and governance over the upgrades of that protocol and all that stuff.
Cool. Let's just close out. How can people get a hold of you guys or follow you on Twitter? Let's start with Grendel.
Yeah, of course, you can follow me on Twitter. And my Twitter, if I'm not wrong, but I will tell you because I don't even remember it, is Grendel Marco. GrendelMarco.
Justice, how can people follow you? And then also, I think to add on to that, maybe leave them with something they should go do. If they haven't joined a DAO yet and they've been wanting to, or if they've only been in one DAO, maybe you can encourage them a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a Singularity Hack on Twitter, or go by 0x Justice, like in the space. And so that's how people can follow me. My Mirror account where I write is operator.mirror.xyz. I think that's it. As far as the call to action, I would say this. There's an entire kind of scientist movement called like platform engineering, platform design, that think in terms of, it's called aggregation theory, and boundaryless is a big kind of think tank in this. And there are companies that are billion-dollar companies like the Haier Corporation that have a system called the Rendan Hai on how this works. And they are not crypto, they're not DAOs, but the rigor of which they're thinking about this, if DAO thinkers go and look at that and can do the translation, they'll be miles ahead of people that just grind it. We need shoulders to stand on, and there's incredible resources of people out there who have done this. And the Web 2 people have gone deeper. They understand, like, you have to balance the sides of a market. How do you go from a one-sided to a two-sided to a three-sided market? They understand the stakes of a winner take all. There's the unbundling and then the rebundling of the firm. So there's all this. And so I'll say this, I'm going to be doing Boundaryless's masterclass on this like platform design engineering. And that's where I would say there's tremendous alpha in there with the DAO tooling.
CTA is go and check Bankless DAO for everyone else that don't want to go and check Bankless. And to also, of course, to listen to all the episodes of DAO Deep Dives.
Gentlemen, I couldn't thank you enough. I will add to the, or I will reinforce the CTAs. Go check out Bankless DAO. Also, OX Justice's blog is a must-read if you are at all interested in DAOs. So thanks again for being here. We much appreciate you, and this was super fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
And that's a wrap. Sven and Solve are your hosts for DAO Deep Dives, a podcast about all things DAO. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time.